Thank you. To bring up the subtext of tonight's plenary is the chair of the New African Peoples Organization, Brother Chokwe Lumumba, context, linkage, and the rational position.
I want to thank Sister Ifia Mwazi for bringing us here and giving us this opportunity to speak with you, as well as the other planners of the conference. I want to thank the other presenters for the wonderful job they have done to this point to lay out various issues which confront us on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. I want to bring each and every one of you on behalf of the New African Peoples Organization and our political prisoners and prisoners of war who are in prison at this time, warm and revolutionary greetings. Free the land. Free the land. Free the land. Free the land. Yahoo. I think that it's important that we have this discussion tonight. I think that it's important that we more than have the discussion, but we do things as a result of the discussion, which begins to alter our reality in this instance of imperial domination which confronts us and this white supremacy which grips us. What we have actually achieved here is we have brought together people to speak on our ongoing reality, which has been a reality ever since they snatched the first African from the African continent. On one hand, we talk about a history which begins with the colonization of our brothers and sisters on the African continent. And on the other hand, we speak of the history of those who were taken from the continent, dropped into the Atlantic Ocean in some sense, and then dumped here and colonized here on the American continent. The same thing has occurred, colonization on both sides of the ocean. The colonization has been done by Europeans, supremacists. So it's not just enough to call it colonization of imperialism. You have to understand the character of the imperialism. You have to understand that it's structured a certain way. It wasn't done by Chinese or Japanese, not to say that the Japanese ain't done some of that, right? But it was done by supremacists, white supremacists. Down in Mississippi, we call them crackers, right? But this is who did it. And so what they did is they did it in a certain way. They put it in a certain order, and they have a certain order. And when we were little kids, we always knew the order. We say if you yellow, you kind of mellow, right? If you're brown, you stick around. If you're black, you get back, right? And so what we were doing was, as a result of our brainwashing, we were beginning to lay out the order in which we had been colonized and oppressed. And so it is. This colonization not only has a common historical origin, but it also continues with similar characteristics. And so we know now that not only does the death penalty used as an instrument to grip us and to kill us and to subdue us, the death penalty, which was renewed as an instrument against prison rebellions, really, like in Attica and like with George Jackson and like some 79 that occurred across this country after the Attica rebellion. The death penalty is used not only to politically repress us here, but the death penalty is used to politically oppress us in Nigeria.
That's right.
What it is that regardless of whether the colonization continues to work in its direct way, which it works here, some of us venture to think that we are suffering from neo-colonialism here.
Okay.
I think that we are kidding ourselves. White man's not kidding you about who controls you here.
Right? That's right.
It's damn direct, right? Nobody's foolish enough to think that David Dinkins really had any power in New York.
That's right.
Nobody's silly enough to think that the joker down there in Atlanta or the fella that used to be out there in Los Angeles, Uncle Tom out in Los Angeles, right? That any of these people had any real ultimate power. They were actually what you call involved in these in the exercise of and the implementation of colonization through direct colonial rule. But in Africa, we have indirect rule. We have neo-colonialism. And so we see, though, that these things, these oppressions, these things that keep us gripped, basically implement themselves through similar procedures and tools. Now, we don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking about what white people have done to us.
Right.
That should be somewhat imperative. Is that we've been trapped. Our people are trapped. Educationally, we're trapped. I mean, we're trapped because we have no way to turn. If we stay in the schools which they have situated, then they either prepare us to go to some war, someplace to get killed, don't teach us anything at all, to prepare us to be instruments in the drug traffic, or to drop out, or to somehow or another just manifest a lack of development in terms of our literacy. For those of us who manage to get a little education, quote unquote, a little training, learn how to read, learn a little math, then we graduate into graduate ignorance, right? We go off and we go to schools to teach us to be dumber than we were when we were born. We have doctors who know less about themselves now than they knew when they were born. And then if we try to create our own schools, which we do, then we suffer this problem that Ron kind of referred to of becoming elitists. What we do is we quite frequently begin to engage into exclusion of other people and actually become cynical and disrespectful about other people. Actually have the nerve to think that our little 30 or 40 people that we educated are going to free somebody at the same time that we leave hundreds of thousands of millions of other children in these death traps in these schools. So we just exercise a sophisticated, nationalistic kind of ignorance, right?
Right, exactly.
So we have various different levels of ignorance. But we trap. Because everywhere our people turn to try to help themselves, to educate themselves, they run into another trap. And this is what you're so upset about today. This is why you talk about old Clarence Thomas. This is why you talk about it. This is why Ron has to come in here talking about people from New York, because you're trapped. You live under an oppressed regime with the Rizzos and the other reactionary Europeans who've controlled us for years. And so you try to get away from that. You go out and vote for some Negro. This is what you do. And he may not have been a Negro at the time that you voted for him, actually. I mean, that's the thing that we have to understand about this process. See, it is not these handkerchief heads who make for the colonialism. It is the colonialism that produces the handkerchief head.
That's right.
And until we understand that, then we don't understand that our struggle is not just with Clarence Thomas, right? Mm-hmm. Our struggle was with the system that produced it.
That's right.
And that's a big admission. Because that raises some problems, some contradictions when you go out to vote the next time, right? Then you really have to come to terms with what else you're going to do but vote, right? If you're going to vote, right? And sometimes I maintain the best vote is not to vote, right? It's not true that you go run to vote for Jesse every time he runs. It's not true that whoever you put in, that you're going to affect the White House to somehow or another that it's going to do you some good.